All right, guys, what is up? Welcome back to another Money Morning episode. I'm joined again by the handsome Andrew Cooper, and we're talking about the secret to not being broke.
Good morning.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. Enjoying
Good.
summer. It's nice and hot.
Very hot. Ooh, it's very hot.
So what is the secret to not being a broke person, in your view?
There's so many different aspects. Ultimately, I'm very analytical. People that know me know that I am very analytical. I like numbers. I like stats. I like being structured and organized. And that's, in my point of view, the best way to not being broke. You need to know what's going on. If you don't know what's going on, you don't know what money is in your account. You don't know what you can spend your money on. So it all ultimately comes down to numbers, stats, and math, in my point of view.
Yeah, it's just a math problem. I've said this a number of times before, especially when I'm hanging out with the front end guys that are doing the consults for people and booking the calls, and they're asking about ways to get out of debt and how to deal with their money problems. But the money problems most people create for themselves, I find anyway, are really just they make some bad choices. It just boils down to, all right, look, if you have these results around you, meaning stacks of credit card debt or lines of credit or a car that's been repossessed, you've made some bad choices that got you there. And it's just making some better choices when it comes to your beliefs around money. I think a lot of it is societal programming. Like, I do a lot of talking about societal programming, with humans in general, and guys tend to make a lot of really bad choices in life, especially on the romantic level. But societal programming encourages people to have debt, right? There's banks out there with slogans that sound something like, you've got more money than you think. And to me, that's just leading people down a path of, yes, I do have more money than I think. I believe that I'm entitled to all of this credit and I should just spend it, and I'll figure it out how to deal with it on the back end. And that's exactly what banks and credit card companies want you to think, right?
Yeah,
they want
instant
you to think that you
gratification.
can afford it.
Exactly. It's instant gratification. And that's one of the problems with people's budgeting skills and budgeting habits these days, is that they have the mentality and belief that they have enough income to cover their expenses, and more often than not, they don't. And they don't know how to look at those types of scenarios and budget for them. They like to go and keep up with the Joneses, is the common phrase that people use in society. Is I need to have the most modern car. I need to have the nicest things around the house. I need to dress well. I need to have the nicest bag and the shoes and the clothes. And it puts people into debt. And most often, what I'm noticing from experience is that it's not one purchase that puts them over the top. It's many, many small purchases.
Oh, yeah,
the $50 here, the $100 there.
choices.
Yeah, and it just keeps compounding. And they think that they're going to be able to sustain or eliminate their debt, and they can't, because they're not looking at their budgeting skills and their budgeting. And it's all a numbers game. Your income has to exceed your expenses at the end of the day. It's as simple as that. You can make $100,000 and still be broke, but as long as you're budgeting correctly, you can make $30,000 or $40,000 and still have cash flow. Just all on how you spend your money.
Yeah, there's lots of people that make 40 grand that have savings versus people that have 120 grand in income that have no savings, right? Just because of their budgeting skills. There's a line in the sand around $70,000, I think, that's universally accepted as far as happiness goes. Like, some people buy stuff to make themselves happy. Like, they think acquiring crap and trinkets is going to make themselves happy. But after $70,000, studies have shown that your level of happiness doesn't go up dramatically or significantly. It's just a difference between buying a Toyota Corolla and a Lamborghini, depending on, where your income bracket is. If you're way up there.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know about $70,000 being enough for a Lamborghini.
No, it's not. No, it's not. But the notion of buying crap to be happy, to supplicate yourself, to keep up with the Joneses, is always a bad starting place. It creates a lot of problems for people when they pull in that kind of credit. I don't know if you're familiar with what do they call it back in the day? I think it was called layaway. Did you ever?
Yeah, I remember the term.
Yeah,
it was before my day, but I remember the term.
Yeah, like layaway was basically, you'd go to a store, this is back in like granddad's day or even dad's day, but it was like, you'd go to a store to like Marks and Spencer, and you'd like a sweater, and it might cost a couple bucks, and you didn't have the money to buy it in full, so you'd put down 10%, 20%, something like that, and come back in your next paycheck and another 10, 20% until you had it paid off, and then you could walk out the store with a sweater. But that model's great for preserving wealth, for making great choices when it comes to money, and that's what was followed for a long time until the smart guys that run financial institutions and instruments said, well, this is great, but we can't keep people on the hook and charge them interest. We can't make more money, so we need to find out ways to make more money. So let's offer them credit, and we'll charge them a little bit of interest, and we'll see how that goes. And that went really well. And we live in an environment where people can be charged up to 59.9% interest in Canada now.
Yeah, the interest rate legislation is 60% is the maximum. So anything under 60 is legal, and anything over 60 is illegal.
Yeah, so it's basically usury or loan sharking. But the biggest loan sharks out there are the financial instruments that banks and credit card companies put out. They get people in serious amounts of credit card debt. Retail store cards are around 29%, upwards of 35%, depending on the facility. Most Visas, MasterCards, Amexes, hover around 19.99. Sometimes they have a low introductory rate to get you hooked in, and then that evaporates like 6 months down the road, along with your hopes and dreams of paying off the debt. With the introductory rate. So it's really just a decision-making tree. And it's like, I think that most 10-year-olds, if they're educated properly and you give them the right tools and you show them how to budget and you show them, the value of money and how to use it, they'll get it at a basic, grade 3, 4, 5-year-old, skill level. But for most people, they just get sucked into the marketing. They get sucked in badly to the marketing, right?
Yeah, it's keeping up with the Joneses, like I said, and we've covered this in a previous show about cars, and it's car loans are one of the biggest issues with people. They have this mentality and reasoning that they want to get into the next newest vehicle. Their 4-year lease, their 5-year financing, whatever it might have been, has expired. They are accustomed to the payment of whatever it would have been. Let's just assume the payment's $500. And now the newest models come out and they think to themselves, well, I was able to afford $500. I'm okay with doing $600. It's not a big deal. It's a newer car, so I'll bite the bullet for the extra $100. And they keep getting into that rut where all they're doing is financing a car for eons, and it's $500 down the drain, $600 down the drain. Yeah. And they're financing cars that really they shouldn't be financed. Like we're talking, if your income is $50,000, $60,000, you shouldn't be financing a $30,000 or $40,000 car. It's just not within your budget. You should be looking for cars less expensive, less on the monetary monthly side, as well as on the overall cost of the overall sum. And people don't look at it that way, unfortunately. They just like that instant gratification, and that's what they've been living off for the last probably 15 years.
Yeah, pop this pill, lose 20 pounds in a week, rub this cream under your eye, remove 10 years of aging and wrinkles. It's like, no, man, that's not how it works. There's some planning and there's some thinking that needs to go into establishing your finances so you do not end up being broke. It's a choice mechanism. It's not the government's fault. It's not your employer's fault. It's not your parents' fault. If you're an adult, if you're over the age of majority and you can vote or you can drink alcohol, it is your fault. You're a grown-ass adult. You need to make better choices that get you better results. And if you're carrying around debt, okay, got it. You've made some bad choices. What are you going to do to tackle that? Are you just going to keep, throwing money at the problem and, sitting on the merry-go-round of debt? Do you guys still talk about the merry-go-round of debt when you're on the consults?
We do occasionally. It's not a common terminology used anymore, but I've heard it. I've said it. It's just that most people are feeling bewildered by the amount of debt that they've got for various reasons. They're spending it on different items. When you ask most people what they've spent it on, more often than not, they're not exactly sure. It's an accumulation. They say it's an accumulation of bad choices over many years, which is very likely correct. Most people don't go out and spend $10,000 on a credit card because they wanted to do their new windows in their house. That's not usually the case. $10,000 on a credit card was accumulation of purchases at stores, at restaurants, on purchasing of vacations, and it just accumulates over time. And as you said, it's a matter of being proactive rather than reactive. You really need to sit down prior to making a purchase, especially a major purchase. If you're spending $50 here or there, it's not too big of a deal. But if you're looking to go spend $2,000 on a new item of furniture, if you need a new sofa, TV, dining room set, living room set, whatever it might be, you should be sitting down looking at your budget, working out what your income is, what your expenses are, and what you can afford to manage, and then not exceed it. It's that simple. You don't want to be carrying debt. You don't want to be carrying credit cards. And the way around that is figuring out how you can pay it off in a quick time frame, not on a 25-year cycle or a 20 or 35-year repayment schedule.
Yeah, I always used to get frustrated when I was talking to a couple of the guys, and they would, like we'd go through some of the distilled versions of a consult, and you'd hear somebody's, that's making 30 grand a year, and they just spent like $4,500 financing or leasing a pet or something like that, right? Or heavy vet bills when they don't have anything going for them, and they're drowning in 40 grand worth of credit card debt. It starts with the beginning choices. I mean, you need to take care of yourself. You need to make yourself your own mental point of origin. And by that, what I'm saying is you need to put yourself ahead of the banks. I mean, when you're out there financing crap and you're paying 20, 28%, 35, upwards of 60%, if you get yourself in a vicious cycle of payday loans and stuff like that, it's going to cost you, man. It's going to cost you a lot in the long run. And what they do is they get you into this cycle where they have you at a point where they want you to just make the minimum monthly payments because that placates you and you feel like you're doing something. But when you look at the credit card statements and the bills, the way that they apply payments that you make, they go to interest, late fees, penalties, cash advances. They go to everything else before it hits the principal. And the principal is what you owe right now. So you're basically throwing money at a problem that is not coming down. I know it was like around 2010 to 2012 or so, the government changed the legislation. So credit card statements had to declare how long it would take you to get out of debt. Most people don't see it because it's almost invisible on credit card statements. And a lot of people don't even look at the credit card statements. They just throw the minimum monthly payment at it. But you guys have to inspect statements when you take on new clients to update the settlement protocol and the work that you're going to do with offers and stuff like that. What's the longest you've seen as far as on statements when it discloses how long it'll take somebody to pay off debt if they just make the minimum monthly installments?
I don't remember the exact number. It was over 210 years. And it's...
Are you serious?
Yeah, 210 years. Now, and to be frank with you, that doesn't even clear the debt up. They're just losing, the amount of time it would take to pay off an account. And I'll give you a very simple example. $10,000 is a credit card balance. It might be a higher sum, but it's a $10,000 balance. The interest on most credit cards, as you said, is about 19.99%. So just round it to 20%. That would mean on a monthly basis, interest is accruing at $200. And on a minimum payment schedule, most banks, most financial institutions require you to remit 2% of your balance. So if you owe 10 grand, 2% of it is $200. So if your minimum payment schedule requires you to pay 200 and the interest that's accumulating is 200, the debt never extinguishes. It's going to remain until such time as you've got the ability to throw more money at the account than the minimum payment schedule. So sometimes the minimum payment time frame that the government introduced, it was in 2010, is actually not accurate, because if you're only paying your minimum and it's the interest component, you don't pay off the 10 grand. It's impossible. So that's why you see years where it says, I've seen sometimes it says 99 plus because they run out of time. It says 199 plus because they don't know. And I think, like I said, the highest I've seen was 210, 200 and something, but it was over 200 years. And that's obviously, as you know, 3 lifetimes. No one has the ability to sustain payments that long.
Yeah. I mean, like, we could spend hours talking about the subject, but we just wanted to kind of, hit the broadcast button and get in the habit of doing these shows on Saturday mornings. And, at some point as the audience grows and you guys get more engaged, we might even take call-ins. Should have had another drink before I got on the broadcast this morning. I need a glass of water. Take some call-ins and, perhaps take questions live. You can throw them in the chat, but just wanted to get the ball rolling. Really, guys, at the end of the day, the secret to not being broke is to managing your money. You can't manage something that you're not measuring. And for the most part, people don't measure their finances. It's just, I have a statement, I have a piece of plastic that says that I have a limit. I can go buy stuff. I'll deal with the payments later, and not being attentive to that and sleepwalking through life is going to get you to the point where you've, gotten all the debt. I know sometimes bad things happen to good people. Could be a divorce, could be you've laid off and you didn't have like a rainy day fund for at least 6 months. Maybe we should talk about that one day. But, if you get laid off and you're out of work for 6-12 months or something like that before you find your next job and you have to live off cards, that's another way that some people end up into that boat. But you really, 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 really need to be super attentive, when it comes to money. It's not about making more money. If you're making $40,000 a year or you're making $400,000 a year, I've seen a lot of people that make $40,000 a year that have a nest egg versus guys that make way more that don't, because they spend everything that they make. It's about managing your money better so that you don't end up in an environment where you have debt. And stop falling for the "you've got more money than you think" lies, or the marketing protocols about, get this brand new car right now. It's like Andrew said, you don't need a $40,000 car if you're making 50 grand a year. Go out and buy a 10-year-old Toyota Corolla, Honda Civic, something that's reliable. Who cares if it has 150, 250,000 kilometers on it? Those things run at least 500,000 kilometers without very many problems whatsoever. And you can pick them up for a few grand and you own it. You're not making payments. You're not making interest installments. So we'll talk more and more about these broadcasts as time goes on. If you guys want to contact the office, talk to one of the consultants about your money problems. If you've got over $15,000 in unsecured credit card debt and you're in Canada, I've just dropped the link in the chat there. I'll also put it in the top comment when we get off the broadcast so you guys can click it as well. Any closing thoughts, Andrew, before we wrap up?
Just one more thing I wanted to add. It's best practice for people to spend 30 minutes to an hour once every 6 months, year at the very least, going over your budget. You sit down on a piece of paper, write down what your household income is, your take-home pay, write down what your major expenses are. You should probably cross-reference it with credit card and bank statements so you can make sure you get the right sums of your expenses, so you know what your rent payment is, your mortgage payment is, your car payment, your insurance payments, your telecommunication, utilities, all those types of costs. You write them down and you can figure out what your budget looks like. That keeps you proactive and it allows you to know what your cash flow looks like on a monthly basis. So when you're looking to plan to make a purchase for something, if you need to renovate, if you need to go out and buy yourself another vehicle because your other vehicle is now starting to comp out on you, you know what you're looking for. You know what you have within your budget. And that's our advice is you sit down and you do this task, you do this process once every 6 months, once a year. And it's also a good idea to check your credit report at the same time. So you have an idea of what's going on collectively around you and you're making informed decisions.
Yeah, and we'll get into all these things as these broadcasts go on. We'll dedicate stuff to where to check your credit report, how to understand it, how to improve credit, stuff like that. Also, there's lots and lots of videos on this channel. So go through it, sort through the prior videos. Everything still holds true today. There's lots of good content here that you guys can consume for free to get answers on stuff you're stuck on. So again, if you've got over 15 grand of credit card debt and what you're doing isn't working, you're finding the balance is not being paid off, or, it's already been a year or 2 years and you still have the same amount owed, now's a good time to talk to Andrew or somebody in the office. Just click the link below and schedule in your free consult to learn about some potential options. Thanks for watching today. We'll see you guys next Saturday morning.
Take care, guys.